Swatch with me today as we go through the Morning Light Diffusing Foundation from Color Me Beautiful. This particular foundation is designed to have different levels of coverage based on its use. And the Morning Light Diffusing Foundation is also a silky foundation that diffuses light and lines away from the face so that you have a less of a shadowy appearance, particularly in the under eye. But you might be wondering, what do these colors look like on the skin and how do I apply it? So what we're going to walk through today in our fantastic Color Me Beautiful live tutorial is the 3 different shades of the Color Me Beautiful Morning Light Diffusing Foundation that I have in front of me here, which include Ivory, and then we have Oyster, and then we have Porcelain. And to follow along, it's really simple. Whether you're watching this live or in the replay, put your comments and your questions down below so that we can learn more from what you're thinking is interesting and curious. And then, of course, offer your suggestions so that as I try this on and you see it, you give me some examples of maybe how you wear the Morning Light Diffusing Foundation or ways that you would like to see it on. The first color that we're going to play with today is Ivory, and I'm going to swatch a bit of this onto my face. And as I do the swatch, you will see the, hold on one second. Examples of maybe how you wear the Morning Light Diffusing Foundation. There we go. All right. So I'm going to use my finger to put this on first. So we have the Ivory, just so. And I have used this before, so you can see how it comes out of the container onto the hand. And we're going to swatch right down the middle of the face like that. The biggest part about putting it on this particular area of my face is that there's a lot of transitional colors happening here. So the under eye area is lighter because I wear sunglasses, and then into the top of the cheek where you see colors. Hello, Monica. How are you? Hi, Deborah. Thanks, guys, for watching. And then you'll see, Valencia, how are you, my dear? You'll see that the Ivory transitions all the way down like that on the face. So let's check out some of these other colors before we start blending and showing how you can apply this on the face. So using a different finger, I'm going to use Porcelain now and squirt a bit of that out of the tube. Porcelain. Really creamy, very rich, comes out super simple from this large tube, and quite frankly, I'm not sure how long this lasts, person. I've never run out of one yet, but it's 1.75 ounces, and it's substantial. It's quite a bit of product in here. On the other side of the face now. All right, hey Richard, ooh, look at that. So that one's a little bit longer. You'll see that the Ivory is a better match for me. I want you to see how it transitions. Let me get closer. Ooh. Like that. So you can see the product. And then the third color, Oyster, with my third finger now. Look at that. Do you use the Morning Light Diffusing Foundation? And how do you apply yours? So I'm going to go right down the middle with this one. Ooh, that's a pretty good match. I bet that one blends really well. Quite frankly, on camera, all of these are going to blend really well. You can diffuse and feather the end of this foundation to a very sheer quality. But if you're looking for more opacity as you put your foundation on, we're going to walk through the different ways that you can make that happen if you're looking for more coverage. So the middle of my forehead, all the way down is Oyster. On the right side of my face is Ivory, and on the left side of my face is Porcelain. So now I'm going to take my towel and just wipe off my fingertips. So we've got Deborah and Monica and Valencia and Richard all watching now. Thank you guys so much for chiming in. Do you use the Morning Light Foundation? And which one of these do you like best? So I have in front of me both a dry sponge, totally dry, and then one that I've also gotten wet. I have a bowl of water just in front of me to make this possible. And if you're looking for sheer coverage, the way to do this is to blot or blend in a stipple-like action with a damp sponge. Sponge is really important to use here and not fingers for blending because it will give you a really smooth and even coverage. Fingers sometimes leave streaks and marks. And if you have much deeper or larger pores, focus on pressing a little bit harder so that the product blends really well throughout the curvature of the skin. So using a damp sponge in this lower point, Monica says, no, she doesn't use it. She would look like a ghost. So just taking what was on the lower part of my cheek just a moment ago, and I blend that out with a damp sponge, you can see that it's a very, very sheer, very, very light coverage. But if I wanted to keep the coverage kind of heavy, I can use the dry sponge and press out. This is a slightly heavier coverage, and the product does not go as far or diffuse as far on the face. So you may find that with a dry application, and when you're going obviously for thicker coverage, you'll use a little bit more of the product in any particular area than you would if you diffused it or blended it sheer like with a wet or damp sponge. So that is ivory, and then we're going to take a look over here at the porcelain, and I'm kind of laughing at myself right now because I'm blending this with my left hand, and I possess zero talents with my left hand, but that feels funny. Have you guys ever tried to do things with your non-dominant hand? That's what that is. But like I said, as it blends in that sheer quality, and then of course the transition in the jawline there is pretty nice. This one may be a little bit dark. Ivory might be a little bit dark even for my under eye area, which is appearing kind of orange to me right now as it oxidizes and settles on my face. So now for the dry sponge here, can you tell a difference? Put in the comments below if you guys can tell a difference. So now we're dry sponging, and I just turned it over. So we're dry sponging the ivory. Hi, Angela. Karen, thank you for watching. Pat, press or push. Do not rub, streak, or drag. And I am dry sponging. Now what's interesting here is you can see where the product was applied first and how it's absorbed into the skin just there. So I waited a little bit long to do that, but it looks like that particular color is better than for my skin. So that was the porcelain is better for my skin right now than the ivory, which, as I mentioned earlier, as it settles, is looking a little dark and kind of orange. So let's take a look down the middle with the oyster. So I have oyster happening right down the center of the face. So this is the damp sponge once again, which feels so much better. This is how I'm used to applying foundation, is with a damp sponge. Great coverage here. I can immediately tell the diffusing qualities. I have more abnormalities and imperfections on my forehead than I do in other parts of my cheeks. Or what I can really see too is that some of the freckling has gone away as I apply it. So this really does have that diffusing and that nice blendable coverage. And I was picking on my forehead earlier. I'm not really sure. I'm 39. I still pick. Does anybody else still pick on their face? Shame on me, right? Okay, and now we're going to dry stipple, dry dab the oyster, which has dried a little bit, onto the nose. So oyster also not terrible. Ivory just not my color. But it's good to see the swatch and to see the blend, how it goes down. Okay, so take a look there. Richard says, can you compare the 3 shades to shades from our former company? Your right cheek looks like an N3 type shade. I probably could. I don't have any of those out anymore and don't have all of them anymore, Richard, but that is very probable that I would have enough of some of them around to compare foundations I have worn in the past to these colors of foundations, so that someone could say, oh, that shade is comparable to something that they may be more familiar with. So if I have them on hand, I can certainly do that. I don't have any right now, but I can certainly put into comments below, Richard, the answer to that question so that you can be helped in that process. So I think that's a great question. Thank you for asking that. Let's talk about the difference between the different applications, and I'm going to go ahead and just squirt a little bit of the ivory on here twice so that you guys can see that. So the ivory is squirted onto this particular clear plexi 2 times. so you guys can see where I've just done that. And the first thing I'm going to do is swirl smear this with my fingers. I just want you to see what the difference is when somebody messes with a product with their finger, how streaky it can appear. Let me see if turning that around makes a difference. How streaky it can appear and how there's thick and thin parts and lines. And it doesn't always leave the most smooth or the most natural look. You can actually have kind of an imbalanced blend if you use your fingers, because your fingerprints kind of get involved. I'm going to wipe some of this off. Give me just a second. But if you use a damp sponge, and I've got the damp sponge here, and you stipple, notice the really smooth, even coverage, and it allows you then to take the product out much, much further. And as you press, because you're pressing with the sponge, it provides that really smooth and even coverage over the spaces on the face so that your pores are also nicely taken care of. Now, I am working on a piece of plexi with the sponge, so if you see some of like the egg-shaped presses in this, you'll notice that they really feather out, and because it's a Morning Light Diffusing Foundation or any other kind of liquid foundation, that diffuses very nicely on the skin versus using a fingertip. Then if you wanted to do it with a dry sponge, so I'm going to do this side with the dry sponge. Same kind of thing. It doesn't quite go as far, like you can't use as much of the product, although I had more on the other side. Very, very similar. Very, very similar effect, but very great coverage. And from my end, I don't know if you guys can see that that's kind of more of a sheer quality to the side that was done with the damp sponge than was done with the dry sponge. And those are some really important reasons why using a sponge versus like a fingertip is really important. Another way that you can apply these types of foundations is actually with a foundation brush. And if you have a foundation brush that you use to swirl and apply product, and let's just do one more example of that. I'm going to do that right here. To swirl and apply product. Can you see it there? Okay. Has a similar getting into the nooks and crannies effect. Also can shear out quite thin, but you'll notice that with this particular brush, it has ends on it, some synthetic ends. That just really helps for getting inside deeper pores, into the nook of the nose, the crook of the nose, some lines maybe around the face, but it applies that really nice sheer, smooth, even coverage. Okay, I have always been in preference of using the sponge. Okay, perfect. So slightly awkward to show, but I hope that you guys were able to see the actual smear of the product on there, and then are inspired to continue to use a sponge or to try a sponge for the very first time. But that was our swatch experience. Thank you for swatching with our oyster, our porcelain, and our ivory in the Color Me Beautiful Morning Light Foundation. Awesome. Okay, super cool. So if this is a product that you think that would serve you well, put in the comments below that you would love to get the link to this so that you can read more about it, perhaps take a look at some of the ingredients, which will impress you. There's some wonderful things in here, like there's avocado oil, there's some wheat germ oil for those that would need to know that, also some aloe. Really wonderful moisturizing properties in this particular piece here. And the description of it is just really very smooth and silky. It's an excellent consistency and also very low on scent in the actual product, which is something I'm a fan of because I like, no scent, no fragrances in products. So it's really important for me to know that that is absolutely the case. So anyway, Color Me Beautiful Morning Light Foundation, swatched on the face, and examples of how to apply. And we will see you here next week when we go over some more Color Me Beautiful foundations so that you can explore those colors and different methods of applications. See you next time.